So let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. Got to make sure the tubes are working. Sometimes the tubes don't work, and we don't like when the tubes aren't working, but it looks like they are working, and that's tremendous news. On the Rumbles, on the locals, on the YouTubes, that's tremendous. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we're talking about the New York trial, the one with Judge Engoron and his Greenfield law clerk, principal law clerk, the one who he issued gag orders about and then sanctioned Trump multiple times. We've been covering this little debacle for quite some time. We know that it was up at the Court of Appeals in New York, and the New York Court of Appeals just came down and they reversed the stay on the gag. So the gag is back in session, and that means Trump is gagged again. Now we're going to see what happened in court, because apparently Engoron had some comments about that in open court when the ruling came down from the Court of Appeals. So we'll see what Trump's defense said about it. But what's curious about it is the gag really only applies to the court and to the staff. It doesn't apply to Judge Engoron himself. Of course, we know Judge Engoron, this fella, leering away at his Greenfield, the Greenfield who we've caught donating thousands of dollars in violation of New York law to Democrats, the same one who is running for office, the same one who joined a bunch of rallies that were anti-Trump rallies, pro-Biden rallies, and the same woman who sits on the bench with the judge and whispers in his ear and maybe even does something under the bench. We don't know. But, passing notes, I mean. So here she has been the subject of this gag order. But now that the gag order is back, the gag order doesn't cover the judge's fam. And as we know, the judge himself has a weird history of being anti-Trump, likes to post certain things in his high school newsletter and stuff like that. But then Trump turned around and came back and is now going after the judge's wife, or at least alleged wife. The wife's name is Dawn Marie, and this was some reporting from Lauro Loomer, and Trump retweeted a bunch of this stuff today, right after the gag order came down. He said, "Oh, you want to gag me? Why don't you gag this?" And he posted a bunch of stuff. And so we'll go through it. And apparently this is allegedly the judge's wife. Now, the court came out and said, no, okay, that's not the judge's wife. And Lauro Loomer is a conspiracy theorist. And so why don't you stop spreading disinformation and misinformation and blah, blah, blah. Well, I'll tell you this, man. I don't believe this court for a second, not for a second. Everything that this judge has been ruling has been the opposite of what we've been experiencing and seeing in reality. And so I don't believe it for a minute, but you can be the judge and you can decide what you think about these posts and where they came from, because Lauro Loomer says that it seems like those posts got deleted. The account got deleted as soon as Trump did some retweets on it. So we'll have to unpack some of that and you can decide what it is. But the question is going to be, are they going to gag Trump against talking about his wife now, or about her son, their son, because apparently their son is also involved in some other interesting activities that are anti-Trump. So all that's going to be coming up in the first segment. Then we're going to go back and forth, and we're going to see this little ping pong game that happens in criminal cases known as discovery. And this is a little fun one, because we're going to see how Jack Smith's thug team of deranged thug prosecutors from his office at the DOJ, we're going to explore exactly how they are denying Donald Trump's requests for discovery. And so I've got two examples for us here, two discovery requests from Trump. You can see they are in this first column here. Trump sent a letter to Jack Smith and the thugs there on October 23rd. And guess what? Thomas Windom, one of the prosecutors, responded just a short time later on November 3rd and said, no, you don't get any of the stuff you need. You need that for trial? Pff, no, you're not getting it. No, thanks. And then we're going to see another example of this one more recently, from November 15th. Again, Trump's team says, hey, we need some information. Government, this time from Molly, highlighter girl, she sent this one back on November 25th and says, no, you don't get any evidence for trial. Who do you think you are? An American citizen? Yeah, right. So we'll go through those and we'll see what's happening from the DOJ and the Trump defense. And then we'll jump over and see what happened today out of the Weaponization Committee, because this was a very interesting little reveal for us. But apparently, military-grade censorship operations were well underway in 2020, and they may still be underway right now for all we know. But literally, an organization called the CTIL, C-T-I-L, the Cyber Threat Intelligence League. That's like a Marvel movie. So the Cyber Threat Intelligence League. All right. So they put together this. It's not a joke, though. Okay. It's not a Marvel movie. All right. They're not just going to put you to sleep. They're going to censor your speech. And so we're going to go through this. Michael Shellenberger had a nice opening statement, but then we'll just jump over into the actual CTIL files. They posted this on November 28th. And it is a nice little expose. It says literally like military operation type censorship organization that spans multiple different countries. It's a horrific thing, and it's happening in America in violation of all of our constitutional rights. Not very fun. So we're going to go through that. We got an opening statement from Matt Taibbi. We've got one of the dumbest Congress people in Congress called Dan Goldman. He is a conspiracy theorist, as we're going to find out, because he thinks that the New York Post fabricated the Hunter Biden laptop. It's pretty amazing. So we'll see what he says. Then we'll also hear from Jim Jordan to close it up and round out the day, who says, is any amount of censorship allowed under the First Amendment? Like, is there a balancing test there that says that, 85% free speech is good enough or something? Because that's what the Democrats seemingly think is appropriate. And so, as you can see, my friends, we've got a lot to get to today, and I'm grateful that you are joining us. It's a beautiful Thursday. We are closing out the week, and I've got a show note. Unfortunately, my friends, this will be our last live stream of the week. I've got a 3-day event. I'm part of this group, this networking group, that has the big event of the year, the annual event, starting tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so it's all day, like breakfast to dinner kind of a thing. So I will be out of pocket here from the recording studio here, and we'll be attending the event. And so for members and for the live stream, we'll not have anything tomorrow or Saturday. So just keep that in mind. Now, I will do my very best to post some updates from the event. It's usually an amazing event. I think we might have a political speaker there this year, somebody who's coming in who's actually running for president, I think, but I don't, I'm not sure about that yet. So it could be pretty cool, and I might have some good updates, but there's usually a lot going on. So come Monday, we'll definitely be back here, but no scheduled live streams for the rest of the week. Now, this morning, for our membos, we had a great membos stream. So if you missed that, I would encourage you to come check it out. We talked about the Hunter Biden bank letter, read through that one in detail so we could see exactly what was occurring. Apparently, this bank investigator had a couple of problems with some of the Hunter transactions we talked about. We also had a discussion about the big Elon FU drop, which was fun, and had some follow-up. We heard from Linda Yaccarino this morning on our Membos stream. And we also got to really dive into the Senate Judiciary hearings. So that was a lot of fun, too. Tom Cotton was looking at all the Democrats, and he was like, "Don't you do it. Don't get brazen with me," is what he said, almost like that. And so we had a good time this morning on our Membos stream. If you want to become a Membo, great way to do that, heading on over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And as I said, I'll be sort of out and about this weekend and doing my best to post some updates for our membos. So come check it out, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Also, we've got our website where if you see any PDFs here on the show, if you see anything you want to dive into, robertgovea.com is where the website is, and we have show reports there. So you can click onto the website, click this reports section, and you'll see here we got yesterday's show. We had Chutkin's report here, and so you can watch the video, you can read a summary of what's going on, and you can access the red lines. Okay, now normally it looks a little bit better than this because I have dark mode on. Here, let's get rid of that there. Okay, there you go. Now it can make a little more sense here. So we put all the red lines here. If you want to read any of the documents, it's all there, robertgovea.com. You can watch the videos and read the report. And of course, sign up for the daily newsletter. Just click this button right here. Boom. Click that. It's all going to come delivered to your inbox, and we'd love to see you there. You can also listen to the audio podcast, join us on Locals, and check out some other cool stuff over there. All right, and so without any further ado, let's get into the meat and potatoes on the day. Here is what we've got. Donald Trump is gagged again, but that didn't stop him from slamming Judge Engoron's alleged wife. We have some interesting social media posts that apparently came from this person called Don Marie. Donald Trump posted a bunch of this stuff on Truth Social, and that came after the gag order was reimposed. Now we're going to look at the gag order. before we jump into Trump's response, and the responses really came from this deep report from Laura Loomer over at Loomer.com, and so we're going to jump into that as well. Now, the court is challenging some of Trump's responses, saying that's not the wife, okay? She didn't post those weird TDS type of images. Now, we'll see. You can be the judge of that. We've seen a lot from this judge. The judge said that he's not doing anything strange with his Greenfield, this woman, Allison Greenfield, the court clerk, and we know that that's not true. There's some weird stuff going on with that woman and this relationship here, and he's gagging them from that, and they move the cameras around so nobody can see their little love notes or massages or whatever. And now they're saying, no, it's not the wife. Yeah, right, we'll see that about that. But it all comes on the heels of the gag order. Now, we've been following this gag order for some time. In my opinion, absolutely unconstitutional. Trump has the free speech protections of the First Amendment to criticize the process. That's the whole point of the First Amendment, is to criticize the process. When the process is corrupted, when you have bureaucrats that have become tyrants, the only thing that you have, the only safety valve, the only safeguard to protect against tyranny is literally the First Amendment. That's why we have it. That's why it's the first one. That's why it's discussed and debated at length in the Federalist Papers and elsewhere. They didn't have free speech, and they couldn't talk about the disgusting behavior from the government. And that's the whole idea of spotlight. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Shine it down. Talk about it. All you got to do is expose it, and the rest of it will sort itself out. And so when they gag you, when they try to put duct tape over your mouth and silence you and muzzle you, that's because they're little tyrant cheaters and they're bullies. And so they have done that in this case. Trump is obviously exposing a big part of the problems with these political prosecutions, and they don't want that to happen anymore. So the gag order was imposed, it was challenged, Trump took it up on appeal, and the gag order has now come back down. And here is what it looks like. And the appellate court does not give us much here, right? It's actually just a very short 2-page opinion coming out of the appellate division from the First Judicial Department. And now undoubtedly, right, Trump is going to appeal this up to the next level. No question, I'm sure. But present are these judges. So Honorable Sally, Ellen, Salian, Lynette, and these were the people who were hearing the oral arguments. They say, all right, well, here's the situation. In the matter of Donald Trump and the Trump org versus Engoron and Tishy Latish, they say a petition was filed in this court on November 15th seeking to annul and to vacate, pursuant to the other orders of the court, Engoron's orders and sanctions, right? And there was a lot of different filings here saying, first of all, that Engoron abused his powers of contempt. He filed these sanctions under the wrong laws and so on. And that every sanction was bad. So that the sanction for October 20th was bad. Sanction October 26th was bad. Saying that 2, also, right, those sanctions needed to be gone. They were illegal. And 2, a gag order of the same court and justice, Engoron, entered on the record or so ordered on or about the 26th, and a supplemental limited gag order that then expanded into the attorneys of the same court and justice was entered. And they say what happened is Trump moved to stay the enforcement of the gag order and the supplemental limited gag order pending a hearing and determination of the instant petition. Now, upon reading and filing the papers with respect to the motion, and due deliberation having been had thereon, it is ordered that the motion is denied. The interim relief granted by the justice of this court, dated back on November 16th, is hereby vacated. And so November 30th, signed by Susana Molina Rojas, and that gag order is now back in place. And so we're going to watch what happened here with Engoron, because they got the news of this in court today. And so here is what that sounded like from the proceeding. We see Klasfeld was there in session, and he is reporting that this is what it sounded like when the court heard this. This was the ruling, of course, that we just read, and the civil gag order has been reinforced. Now, Engoron, as soon as he saw this in open court, Engoron said, I intend to enforce the gag orders rigorously and vigorously. Man, this guy is something else, isn't he? And I want to make sure counsel inform their clients. He's probably looking at his green field at the time. He's like, rigorously and vigorously. Yeah, baby, you like that? She's like, ooh, don't talk to me that way. So Trump's attorney, Christopher Key, says, oh, he says, Your Honor, yeah, my client's aware of it. All right, he knows what you've done here. Engoron is like, good. Key says it's a tragic day for the rule of law. Undoubtedly. Wild that this is even happening. So nobody can talk about the judge's, Democrat operative, court clerk, even though she's made illegal contributions under the black letter of the law to other Democratic causes, some of which were literally adverse to Trump and in favor of Tishy and Joe Biden. So it's bizarre, right? It's the state protecting themselves. They're circling the wagons to defend against any external threats. And this is Engoron saying, oh, perfect, great. So I dare you. Say something else, I dare you. Well, Trump said, okay, no problem, happy to do it. So here is what it looks like over on Truth Social. Now, what we see here is Trump's truth thread. This is his entire account. And so we're going to just poke through it and see what happened bright and early this morning. You'll see one of the first things that came out is a retruth from Donald Trump. We can see this was retruth today. It's a post from Lauro Loomer, at Lauro Loomer on Truth and elsewhere on X. And what this says is exclusive. Judge Arthur Engoron has made the Trump trial a family affair and potentially has reserved seats for his son, Ian Engoron, who may be financially benefiting from the Trump trial via his position as a Democrat activist at a Democratic activist law firm in New York City. And his father's judge is overseeing the Trump trial in New York City. Interesting. Now, during my investigation, says Laura, into communist New York City judge Arthur Engoron, Areola, I discovered that he has 4 children. His son's name is Ian, and he often references his son in the writings in the Wheatley alumni newsletter, the same newsletter that we've talked about here with the bonus torso photos that had the areolas flying out to his alumni, I don't think without any prompting, which is operated and controlled by Arthur Engoron. She says, I have every edition archived. Now, Ian, she calls a radical leftist lawyer who works as the associate shareholder for the Olsham law firm in New York, and it's called shareholder activism. It implies that he's working financial deals for his law firm, right? So you can come to your own conclusions about what to extract from this data, but it's curious. She allegedly has him in the courtroom. And we don't know if that's true or not, right? We don't know if that's the same guy, but she says here, Olsham, Engage Capital reaches an agreement for, that looks like him, Ian Engoron, associate shareholder, the associate shareholder activism practice. Shareholder activism practice. I don't know what that means. But here, Ian Engoron looks like this dude right here. And she says he might even be in the courtroom, right? Observing daddy at work with his greenfield. And maybe that's him. I don't know, right? So you can be the judge. Come to the conclusion for yourself. But this is what Donald Trump started the day off retruthing. Now you'll see he retruthed that one. And then he posted this one. He retruthed this one also from Lauro Loomer. He says, this one from Laura says, I have uncovered screenshots from the X account of Don Marie Engoron, right? And this, Laura posted this one some time ago. Actually, this was today, 2 days ago, November 28th, from this recording, 12:10 p.m. So Laura posts this. I have uncovered screenshots, and we got a bad no-no word on the screen here, so be careful. Says, I uncovered screenshots from the X account of Don Marie Engoron, the wife of leftist judge Arthur, who is overseeing the civil fraud case. Shows that she's been posting attacks on Trump from her account called DMSMINXS. And that was on X. Now, she says this is incredible bias. Now, on around November 7th, this is, trials in the middle here, she posted tweets in which she said, F Trump. She posted Photoshop pics of Trump in an orange jumpsuit. She attacked me during my live show a few weeks ago for exposing her husband, and she's openly attacking President Trump's lawyer, Alina Abba. Nobody can say this is a fair trial. Now, again, I don't know if this is the judge. Okay, they're saying that, just to be clear, let's pause here, in fact, and just go over there and see what the court says about this. Because the court says it's not us, it's not her, right? And we're going to take a look at the post and you can come to your own conclusion on it. But I don't trust the court at all, which is a sad thing to say. But they've already told us there's nothing weird going on. and that they're moving cameras around. The judge has made weird posts in his alumni newsletter. She's made thousands of dollars of donations that he's excused by making weird interpretations of judicial opinions that don't even apply, saying that she can deduct those. The whole thing is just, it feels rigged, the whole thing. So I just don't believe them when they say stuff like this, but you can maybe if you want to. The New York judge's wife, according to Classfeld, he posted this on the Messenger, says the wife says, quote, "We sent no social media posts about Trump." Okay, the court confirms that. And, say what you want about the court. I don't personally trust this particular court. So Trump, based on his claims that the judge's wife has been denigrating him on social media, said a Manhattan judge's wife never posted comments about former President Trump, court officials confirmed on Thursday. Okay, who? Now, Al Baker, the state spokesman for the New York Office of Court Administration, wrote, okay, this is what Al Baker wrote. Justice Engoron's wife has sent no social media posts regarding the former president. They are not hers. Trump earlier posted the social media posts based on blog posts from Lauro Loomer. And they're trying to, smear her. Oh, she's a conspiracy theorist, ex-Infowars contributor. Huh? She says that she got social media posts from Don Marie on X. Now, Loomer presented no evidence the account belonged to Engoron's wife, who denied it was hers and told Newsweek she never had an account on that social media platform. Now, New York's system officially corroborated that on Thursday. Well, maybe it's true. Now, the court security officer wrote in his sworn affidavit that Trump's attacks on various trial participants have resulted in very serious threats and blah, blah, blah. And other people are, making illegal threats. But the gag orders do not prevent Trump from making statements about Engoron or his family members. To date, Engoron has not commented on the attacks on his wife. And again, I don't, we don't know who posted these things. And so, you can be a little bit careful on this. And I certainly want to include the caveat that they very well could not be hers. Who could they be? I don't know. They could be somebody who is impersonating her, right? It could be somebody who is trying to gaslight this, right? AstroTurf this, make it like it is her, or it could literally be her. We don't know. Unfortunately, the justice system in this particular jurisdiction has been so corrupted because the judge's clerk was literally campaigning for Letitia James, the person who is bringing this, that we don't really know. All right, the judge is posting his highlight reels and his Wheatley alumni newsletters, and so it is perfectly plausible that Dawn Marie is Judge Engoron's wife and that she's posting this stuff under some weird pseudonym that, she's just she wants to be involved in it. The judge has his Areola newsletter and she needs to talk to her fans too. She needs to get involved in this. So, this is what Trump posted, right? And now apparently the account has deleted itself. Now we'll take a look. She says, Judge Engoron's wife at DM SMINXS says he'll never be in the White House again because he's headed for the big house. Right? Trump posted that after the gag. Also posted this one. Now, another from Judge Engoron's wife. He says, can this be America? 2024, Trump's in there. She says, he's headed for the big house. Posted on 11/6/23. I don't know if it's her or not. Trump says it is. Now, he says here, this is the judge's wife and family that are putting these things out. I am not entitled to a jury under this statute. Can this be happening in America? This is the most unfair trial in the history of New York, and I've had some pretty unfair trials. Yeah. And this one says F Trump, and it's got Trump bald in a jumpsuit, right? Don't know. I don't know if that's Judge Engoron's wife, but maybe. It fits. It fits as far as I can tell. It's more in alignment than it is out of alignment, right? If she was posting MAGA content, I'd be like, that's weird. But she's not. She's perfectly in alignment with everything else that's going on here. So it seems like it fits. And of course, that was the original post where he says that he retruthed it. So the court is refuting it. And Lauro Loomer says that there's some serious possibilities there. And now my question is, how can you prove that, right? It's really hard to prove that one way or another. In fact, I think that if the FBI were interested in getting to the bottom of this, if this were like a photograph of somebody posting something like that about an election or something like that, a bad illegal meme, maybe they would round that person up, right? Maybe that would be like a threat and they would imprison that person for months on end for illegal memes because we know that they're doing that. But How do we prove it one way or the other? We don't really know, but it turns out Laura Loomer is investigating it. She's got this website called loomered.com, and she posted this, and the rest of the stories are here. And so you can see the latest updates from her, and she's asking questions about this. George Santos is asking questions about this. And so people are digging in. Now, I want to also be very, very clear about this, right? And I say this every time, and I'm not, anytime that there are, Trump is going to post this. Now, what they're going to do is they're going to come back and they're going to say the attacks on his wife have gone through the roof and so on and so forth, and that he needs to be gagged further or that he's a menace, right? This is going to turn into an instigation, and they're going to say we have to gag him harder. It's reaction and response and cause and action and response, and we're just going to keep following it around. This is another escalation. Now, in my opinion, free speech trumps judicial process. Whatever it is they're kind of making up is an actual legitimate threat. I've already explained this. Actual legitimate threats and harassment are already illegal. Any type of borderline messages, tweets, emails, voicemails, whatever, will be investigated and should be investigated, right? We don't want anybody threatening or harassing federal officials or anybody at all, anywhere, right? Don't want any threats or harassment at all because it's already illegal and it's just not appropriate in the first place. But we also want valid criticism. We want to be able to talk about bizarre little setups like this where these two lovebirds are kicking each other under the benches. She has an open animus against Trump. So does Engoron. So does Tishy. And we've got a lot of suspicion about the rest of the family too, right? Apples don't fall far from the tree. So this will continue to escalate this. We'll see what the government does in response. And I'm certain that they're going to try to use this to attack everybody. We learned yesterday that if you liked or retweeted one of Donald Trump's X account posts, then you showed up on an FBI list. And so it's probably the same thing happening here, right? They're probably monitoring all this as well. So if you go through here and you did something like that, like if you like that button or like you retruth something like that, like you might be on an FBI list again. I don't know. It's just something that we know that they're doing this based on all the files that have come out. So like if you're liking and retruthing stuff, probably on another spreadsheet, and another one. So anyways, you get the point. Of course, we're going to be here continuing to cover this, my friends, and we'll hope that the free speech side of this prevails, but we'll be here continuing to cover. Thank you for joining us as we do. Thanks for visiting robertgovea.com, signing up for our daily newsletter, checking out the show reports, reading and reviewing any of the PDFs over there. We'll look forward to seeing you right back here on the next one. All right. And so let's carry on, my friends. We're going to turn our attention over to the January 6 cases and discovery. So this stuff is always fun. We got a back and forth now between Jack Smith and the Trump defense. And so let's get right to it, shall we? Donald Trump's defense has sent several discovery requests. Let me do that again. Donald Trump's defense has sent several discovery requests over to Jack Smith and the prosecutors there at the Deranged Thug Prosecutors of America. And we know that they are responding with mostly declinations saying, oh, Trump, you need information for trial. We already gave you 13 million pages of irrelevant material, but you don't need this stuff because this stuff is actually pertinent. And so we're going to go through two examples of this. First one, from the end of October, this is from Donald Trump's defense team. It's a request for discovery. Remember that the government holds all the cards. They have everything. All the files, all the videos, all the hard drives, all the data, all the law enforcement, all the money, everything. So the defense just says, can we please see some of it so we can prepare ourselves? Well, the government is going to reject them largely in both cases. The first one's going to come from Thomas Windom. He responds on November 3rd. The second request comes from Trump in mid-November. They get rejected about 10 days later by Molly. We know Molly, the highlighter girl, who says, I already gave you all your information and I made a nice little flow chart with sticky tabs in it. And the judge, Chutkin, was like, wow, this is beautiful. This is better than my kid's artwork that I shove on the refrigerator. So Molly is going to respond and reject. We've got two different rejections, and I want to share how this works because this is where a lot of cases are made, man. This is discovery. This is evidence, and we try to get evidence in. We try to preclude evidence, and so this is the stuff that is often not seen in a trial, but it's how we get to the trial. It really is the determination of what we talk about. It's all happening in these letters, and so let's get right to it. The first discovery request came out October 23rd from Lauro and Singer. This is Trump's defense team, and you can see it's a good one. It's a 10-pager. He says, all right, we're writing here from Florida and New York, laurosinger.com. Shout out to those guys. They send this over to Molly, highlighter girl, and Thomas, both of whom have a strong history of anti-Trump bias, right? Before this indictment was even filed, we know that they were sending letters to Bill Barr like, there's no election fraud. You're like, it's like November 10th, like the election just finished yesterday. How do you know that? Like, well, because we hate Trump. Biden won. Okay. So they say, all right, Trump's defense says, hey, Molly, hey, Thomas, we're writing on behalf of Trump. And as you know, we're entitled to Brady material and other things. We have a right to get it. Brady material under the Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendments, and so on. Now, you people simply pointing to your voluminous discovery, and just to point out that they had 13 million pages of documents that they dumped over to the Trump defense team. And they said, you've got about 9 months to review it, or however long, like less than a year to review it, because trial's in March. 13 million pages. And we also saw that in cases like Walmart versus Visa, the defense found this case. It took 6 to 7 years, and there was only 7 million pages of documents in that one. Walmart versus Visa, whatever, it's an order of magnitude smaller. 7 years. So like 9 months, less than a year for 13 million pages. And they just say, when you say, can we have more information, please, about the actual stuff that we need? Molly just says, you got 13 million pages. It's all there. They say simply referring to that is not satisfaction of your obligations. Now, stop with this nonsense saying that you've exceeded your discovery obligations, right? You have not. We respectfully request that you actually produce discovery that is responsive to these discrete requests. We have specific things that we want. And I'm sure this is not the first one, okay? There are many more that came before this, but we're just picking two of the more recents. Now they say, all right, listen, Molly and Thomas. Now, each of the requests set forth calls for the production of documents irrespective of their classification level, okay? We want everything. So don't give us the non-classified, declassified, this is class, all of it. As used herein, the term foreign influence means anything as we say, and this is what we want. This request call for the specified documents as we define that term previously to you. So here's what they want. Please provide all documents about informants, cooperators, undercover agents, representatives, anyone acting at the behest of the DOJ and law enforcement agencies. Please provide all documents, cooperators, agents, and people who were there on January 6th. Now, a lot of this stuff is mirroring the motion to compel that we've already read through, right? The motion to compel is on the back of this. So these are all the original requests that they said, hey, like we're asking nicely, and then we don't get it. We get a motion to compel later. So some of this language is going to sound a little bit repetitive here, but it's for good cause. Now they say, please identify all consideration of things for anybody who is trespassing. Okay, so anybody who is given something for being physically present at the Capitol or for trespassing, like an exchange of good. Now, please provide all documents about requests for national security at the Ellipse rally. Please provide any information about alternate electors used in prior elections that you guys know about, and your investigations about those alternate electors, because we know that's happened in many other elections, like 2020 was not the most recent one where we had alternate electors. Obviously, there was before that. So they investigated all the ones from 2016, right? Now, please provide all documents about state legislature involvement, approval, and acquiescence to alternate electors in any election. And we're going to see what the government responds. They're going to respond to each one of these. Now, please provide all legal opinions about state legislators and alternate electors, any documents about election fraud, including but not limited to 2020. Now, they also want this bunch of redactions here. These paragraphs, don't know what those are. But B, C, D, all the way through H, redacted. We've also got, they want documents, all of them, related to the investigation of voting anomalies. Any irregularities in 2020, including but not limited to the number of total votes that exceed the past elections, anything like this, significant late shifts in voting totals, like we saw the little markings go. Remember we were watching the ballots, the returns come in, and it was looking like Trump was like this, he was like winning, and Joe Biden was like this, he was losing. And then all of a sudden we went to bed like right here, we're like, wow, that's pretty good. That looks pretty great. We were live streaming at the time. We're like, yeah, it looks like Trump won everywhere. It's pretty amazing. And then, figures, because nobody likes Joe Biden. It's weird. He's, a plagiarist and, dementia even on the campaign trail. So it's bizarre. But okay, so we went to bed and then we woke up. And then the next morning it was like this. Like that. And we woke up and it was like this. Joe Biden wins. We go, well, that's weird. It doesn't look like, I'm not a statistician, but that looked a little bit strange. We saw that happening all over the place. And there was like water main breaks and it was just really weird. And then all of a sudden, people started saying that looks like a big F, like the word fraud, because that's what it was. So they want information about that, right? Late night shifts and stuff. They want documents about anything that was provided to Trump and his advisors between November 3rd and January 6th about fraud, irregularities, and the other things. Documents regarding changes or amendments to state election statutes. And we spent, I can't tell you how much time here talking about that specifically about all the election litigation. We had charts, created about this stuff. So there's a lot of them. Documents about activities or responses by state legislatures following the investigations. All assessments of potential fraud. They say, please provide all documents about complaints or concerns by any prosecutor from the DOJ, right? Is anybody there like blowing the whistle? Is anybody there upset by what you're doing here? They also want any complaints by federal law enforcement, anything related to the 2020 election or the investigations that have been occurring. So the government's going to dismiss a lot of this. Watch. Now, please provide all documents about the DOJ personnel or the public integrity section. Any documents that show that there was no fraud at 2020. Any documents that accept the non-outcome of non-determination of fraud. Okay, and so look, a lot of requests here. Now, I'm not going to belabor ourselves and go through every single one of them. But you see here, paragraph 32, bunch of redacted things. Can we have that? Can we have that? Can we have that? Can we have that? Can we have that, please? All documents about improper FISA. Please provide documents about communications between the DOJ criminal, DOJ Office of Inspector General, Trump, Jeffrey Clark, and 2020 election. Information from NARA, stuff about executive privilege, whatever this redacted section is. All documents related to the transfer of materials between the special counsel's office and the House so-called select committee led by Cheney and Kinzinger. Similarly, redacted. What is that? All documents about election security issues. And so it's a big request, right? A lot of stuff there. They say, all right, John Lauro signed this off. Please confirm that you've done all of this. We expect to submit additional questions. So get started on this one, and another one's coming later. We're going to be submitting this on a rolling basis. Please let us know if you have any issues you'd like to discuss. Respectfully submitted, your friend, John Lauro. So that gets sent over. Now, the government responds. This is the one in response. This is Thomas Windom from the special counsel's office. Lots shorter than the other one. He says, all right, dear Trump lawyer, we write to your discovery letter dated October 23rd, the one that we just read, in which you make 79 discrete requests for discovery. And I was thinking to myself, 79? What? I thought I counted 50 something over here. There were 59 over here. And so then my thought was, oh, well, some of these have multiple requests in them. So Thomas sat down, probably with Molly, and they had a highlighter contest, and they counted every single question, right? So they went through and they said, well, these are not all discrete questions. And they counted this one. Oh, that's another one. So 37 plus 1, right, is that one. 37 plus 2. So they counted them. And so they counted all the sub questions. Oh, that's one. And that's one. And so on, right? All of the sub requests. And so it's not 59, actually. Thomas Windom and the rest of them, they counted them. It's 79. This is what lawyers do. As an initial matter, we previously rejected the definition of your so-called prosecution team that you attempted to impose on your October 15th letter. If you want to see more about that, we'll tell you. Look at our prior letter to you. And we need to know this, right? Who is involved in the prosecution team? Because it sounds like everybody is. Like they got info from Liz Cheney's January 6th Select Committee with Benny Thompson and the rest of them. They got info from NARA. They got info from the DC office, FBI field office over there in Washington. They have information from the CIA, allegedly, right? Certainly the FBI. Who's on the special counsel's team? Isn't the special counsel supposed to be a special counsel, supposedly independent, kind of separated from the DOJ? They do their own due diligence and then come to their own charging decisions and conclusions? Or not? Can they just gobble up all of the worst anti-Trump factions of the US government, cobble them into one, and then call it a day? That's what they've done. So Trump wants to expand the hula hoop and say it includes everybody, and they don't. They want to limit it and make it very small like that. So it's just, kind of looks like a donut or Judge Engoron. Now, here, the vast majority of the expansive requests, they say, in your October 23rd letter are deficient. Many of your requests seek information that exceed the scope of the government's discovery obligations. It's not even in our possession. We don't even have it. Other requests seek information that has already been produced as reflected in the detailed source logs accompanying each of our productions, as would be evident if you just search for them. Just search for them. Now, some requests, she says, the ones that we just read through, some of the requests are too vague for us to discern with particularity what you are requesting. We're too dumb. We're dumb prosecutors. We don't know. Still, other requests follow up on documents that we produced in excess of our discovery obligations, as in the 13 million pages that we dumped on your backyard. Now, to the extent that we produce or have produced information that is responsive to your discovery request, that production does not imply that we concede that the information is discoverable. Oh my gosh. So she says, look, we got 13 million pages of stuff that we dumped in your house. And if we included, she says, first of all, you don't deserve any of that information, right? This is a typical prosecutor's letter. Who wrote this? Is this Windom? Who wrote this letter? Let's see here. Yeah, it's Windom. All right, so it's Windom. He says a bunch of stuff. Okay. So he says a bunch of things. First, if you did your own searches of the data, idiots, you'd find it. But if you find something that you shouldn't have, we don't concede, doesn't imply that we concede that you should have it as part of our obligations to give it to you. So we might have accidentally just included it. And if we accidentally included it, doesn't mean you're entitled to it. So don't ask for it. And if you ask for it, please be more specific, because we're too dumb to understand what you've asked for now. All right. So notwithstanding the above, they say, to the extent that the following requests call for information that is discoverable and in possession of our team, we have produced that information already, or will produce it consistent with the orders. And furthermore, we seek information to better understand some of your requests. In particular, the requests do not appear for call for the production of material, and so please explain your theory of discoverability. Your requests are so vague that we're not exactly sure what you seek. Please clarify. So in order to assist our job, here are things that might be responsive to you. Redacted, 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 redacted. Pursuant to the scheduling order, redacted, redacted here. Now, as noted in the August 11th letter, our first discovery production does contain transcripts and exhibits from witness testimony that we presented to the grand jury. We also have source logs and other grand jury transcripts, which have already been given to you. This is redacted, 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 redacted. They say Trump was a party to 5 miscellaneous matters about executive privilege. Those filings are attached, and these are also redacted. Now, I don't know what they're really saying here. It says here, you appear to be requesting Giglio information. To the extent we've not already provided it, we'll provide it later. You request an explanation of unredacted copy of these records. If you have a question, let us know specifically what you want. It says the government maintains that we have consistently obliged and complied with the Justice Department manual, and we understand our discovery obligations and we're going to comply with them. So don't lecture us. Signed, Thomas Windom. We stand ready to confer with you if you have any other questions. Okay. So in other words, a lot of this is like, you've already got it. We're not giving it to you. Please see our opposition. We've given you some things, the stuff that you're entitled to, you've already got. The stuff that you still need, you're going to get. But search for yourself and go through your records, right? That's the first example. Now, we've got another example because they sent a follow-up to that a couple days later. About 2 weeks later, they sent on 11/15 a new letter back over to the government prosecutors. They say, on the 15th, says, all right, Molly and Thomas, your recent filings in court indicate that you plan to present evidence about the J6 protesters and the Capitol. They say this is strange because we do not believe that there is any evidence that is relevant to the charges in this case, saying that what you're doing here is extremely prejudicial and it's only going to inflame and confuse the jury. But nonetheless, we must be prepared to defend against these uncharged accusations. And so if you're going to talk about J6, well, we're going to need additional discovery. Now, please do not take this request as an indication that we believe any evidence that is related to January 6th is relevant and admissible. We're not saying that you can use it, but we are going to have to review it so that when you make your argument, we're prepared to object. So they say, as an initial matter, government, please let us know what aspects of the J6 events you assert are most relevant to evidence that is going to be introduced at trial. Because most actions at the Capitol on J6 are outside of the indictment, we ask you to identify the scope of your trial presentation so that we may conduct discovery accordingly. Now, in our October 23rd letter, the one that we read, we requested information related to the J6 protest, including information about undercover operatives, prior bids for security, National Guard assistance, 302s, memoranda about the J6 investigations, and so on. And below, we've got some additional requests for J6 stuff as you discuss the scope of your trial. Now, as our motion to compel deadline is approaching, we must get your position, and we know that that motion was filed basically subsequently with this. But they tell us, here's the background, and here are our requests. First, your response to our October 23rd letter, the one that we just read, which basically said you can't have much of this, did not clarify your position on relevancy with respect to each one of these things. Therefore, please clarify. If you intend to introduce evidence of trial of injuries that was sustained to law enforcement, please provide the documents about those injuries. If you think that you're going to introduce information about the Ellipse rally, can you please introduce and tell us about the military intelligence that you have? Give us all memos about interviews with law enforcement officers that were there at the Ellipse rally. Please provide all documents about the National Guard at the Ellipse. All documents about the sergeant at arms in the House of Representatives. Who had operational control? Paragraph 8, redacted. Please provide information about Mayor Muriel Bowser's preparations and DC Metro Police preparations. All things that were done by the Capitol Police, permits that were issued, video of the J6 protest, anything that you intend to introduce at trial. We have the right to additional video once you've identified the video. So if you're going to do little Liz Cheney's highlight reel in court, we're going to go get the corresponding videos. Please provide all documents about efforts by foreign actors, whether state or non-state, to undermine public faith in the U.S. democratic process pursuant to intelligence reports. All documents about the alleged pipe bomber at the RNC and DNC, information about immunity that was granted to any persons who were charged, intelligence about activities of persons associated with Antifa, also Antifa. Ooh, they want to know, and information about Ray Epps, the scaffold commander, John Nichols, or any person who participated in this. They want the Norfolk memo, documents about December 20th preparations, congressional debates, daily intelligence reports for the rallies, more documents about operating procedures, communications, this is a good one, between Yogananda Pittman, Nancy Pelosi, Pelosi's staff, and Pelosi's representatives. All this information they want. Please provide us a memo of all the witnesses you expect to call at the trial for anything related to January 6th, violence, and so forth at the Capitol. Sincerely, your friend, John Lauro, sent over to the government. Now, Molly responds to this one. She says, I don't know, John. Dear John, Lauro, Molly says, we write in response to your November 15th letter and to follow up. Sounds like they had a meeting on November 21st. She sent this one a couple days later. She says, as an initial matter, John, during your discussion, our discussion together, you clarified that your questions about the scope of the prosecution team concerned documents available to you as a result of Trump's case in Florida, as well as which law enforcement agencies worked on this investigation leading to this case. They say, first, as we already told you, we produced witness statements given by witnesses that are in the investigation leading to the Florida case where witnesses were already interviewed, have given it to you. If you believe that there are other records in Florida that you think may be discoverable in this case, then you can call us. For example, we respond below to the issue you raised with respect to a document that you characterized as related to Mike Pence. And second, law enforcement agencies that worked the investigation were the FBI, the DOJ, Office of the Inspector General, the National Archives, OIG, and the Postal Service. Now, turning next, John, to the enumerated questions in your letter, we provide specific responses below. The Bates numbers identified below are examples of ranges that contain documents responsive to your requests. Now, they are not an exhaustive list of where the production's responsive materials may be located, so you can go find it yourselves. But it might be located here. So they ask for all that stuff, and they say, here, it's probably in the 13 million pages somewhere in this range. Moreover, to the extent that we produce or have produced information, it doesn't imply that we concede that we are going to give you more of it. So here are the requests. 1. This question, request number 1, is asked for additional responses to your letter. It says, here are our responses. They said, you want information about SolarWinds and the cyber attack. You think it's relevant to this case, but we disagree. No SolarWinds for you. You also clarified that you were asking whether the government was withholding non-discoverable evidence of election fraud. We have not withheld evidence of election fraud in our possession. Now they say about requests. You indicated that during the course of our meet and confer, you talked about SEPA. Now we refer you to the government's motion to strike about the relevance and the discoverability of these materials. So you're not getting that either. Regarding this request, you stated that you believed it would be relevant to this case if a state legislature disagreed with the state judges. We disagree. But in any event, we're not holding any material in our possession, right? So we don't have it. Now, about request 23, you stated that you're seeking any legal opinions about the validity of mail-in ballots and all the things. They said, well, to the extent that we have anything, we gave it to you. You wanted this stuff? Well, here's our question on that, all redacted. Now, for requests 30, 40, 42, 43, and 44, that information exceeds the scope of our discovery obligations, and it's not within the possession of our team, or it does not exist, right? This is why the scope of the prosecution is so important. They can just say we don't have it. It's outside of the scope. So Rule 48 seeks Jenks material. If we determine that we're calling these witnesses, we'll give you those emails. And Jenks materials are reports, information that government witnesses are relying upon. It's discoverable. As we stated previously, other requests, 54, 55, 58, 59, all of those, we understand, will continue to meet our discovery obligations. Now, next, in your most recent letter, you made a large number of requests related to January 6th. Now, below, we're responding to these on a question-by-question basis. As we advised you, in the course of our investigation, we accessed certain materials within the database, the J6 database. We took into possession certain materials that we may rely on, and we produced them to you in discovery. Now, in our August letter, we already told you this, but we reiterate that now. Request number 2, redacted. Don't know what that means. Request number 3, in our meet and confer, you wanted intelligence related to the ellipse. But this request exceeds the scope of our obligations, and it's not within our possession. However, to the extent that there is information that we got from the Secret Service and others, we've given it to you. So we just don't have it, man. They don't have a lot. Now, we produced interview reports and transcripts of law enforcement officers, and here are the people that we've given to you. So these people they've already produced reports on. And these requests seek information, here, a lot of requests, 5 through 7, 9 through 11, 28, 30 through 33. These requests exceed the scope of the government's discovery obligations. But if we had anything, we gave it to you. This one, we refer you to this motion. We don't think it's relevant. 12 exceeds the scope, not within our possession. We will identify trial exhibits under 13, 15 through 19, 34 through 36. All of these requests about the pipe bomber and Antifa appear to be focused on others' actions during the J6 attempts. And so none of this stuff is relevant here. To the extent that we possess any materials that you want, we don't have them. And so you stated that you think the DOJ has taken inconsistent positions, but we don't agree with that. We disagree. The DOJ's position is consistent, and Trump is responsible just like the other people were responsible. So this also exceeds the scope, and we don't know how to respond to this. Please give us some more information. And here it says, during our call, you mentioned that there were some technological glitches in previous document productions. As stated, and as we previously offered, we will gladly arrange a phone call with our tech support staff to help. All right, so that's Molly, highlighter girl. And as you can see, they're still battling over discovery. And the motion to compel is now situated in Judge Chutkan's courtroom. And so we'll be waiting for an ultimate ruling on this, because this was the more recent response, November 25th. We're battling for discovery. What can Trump talk about as it relates to January 6th? It's a January 6th case. Hopefully Trump can get some January 6th evidence so that he can prepare his defense. We'll know that the government is going to do their best to stop him from getting access to actual evidence. They'll dump 13 million pages of materials that are more or less relevant, but the stuff that you actually need to prepare your defense, they're going to try to drag their feet on that. It's not in our possession. Who has it? The CIA? Can we get it from them? They're not within the scope of our prosecution team. So we'll be here, my friends, continuing to cover this. We'll see what Judge Chutkan says in her ruling. Thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're watching this. We go live at 5 p.m. Eastern time every day of the week. We look forward to seeing you here when we go live. And thank you for inviting someone from your friends or from your family to come and join us. We'll look forward to seeing you and them right back here on the next one. All right. And so let's turn our attention now over to the censorship operation. Okay. They can't just satiate themselves with gagging Trump and censoring him. They got to gag the rest of us too. And they can't do it through judicial orders. So they've got to do it through military grade operations. Here's what we learn. A military grade censorship operation has been under effect for quite some time. And we learn about that in a congressional hearing with Michael Shellenberger, Matt Taibbi, and others in Congress. And they reveal some details for us about this organization called CTIL, C-T-I-L, the Cyber Threats Intelligence League. Very powerful and scary, but it's a pretty serious organization because they're censoring a lot of free, protected speech in our country and elsewhere. And so we're going to go through the actual report that Shellenberger dropped on the X platform. But first, we're going to hear from him. He gave a nice opening statement, issuing a very serious warning for all of us to heed. And Matt Taibbi follows up with an opening statement, and we're going to hit some highlights from this testimony from Dan Goldman from the left, who I think is now officially a Hunter Biden conspiracy theorist, and Jim Jordan, who brings in the part about censorship. And so this is what Michael Shellenberger said as the hearing in front of the Weaponization Committee got underway today.
9 months ago, I testified and provided evidence to the subcommittee about the existence of a censorship industrial complex, a network of government agencies, including the Department of Homeland Security, government contractors, and big tech media platforms that conspired to censor ordinary Americans and elected officials alike for holding disfavored views. I regret to inform the subcommittee today that the scope, power, and law-breaking of the censorship industrial complex are even worse than we had realized back in March. 2 days ago, my colleagues and I published the first batch of internal files from the Cyber Threat Intelligence League, which show US and UK military contractors working in 2019 and 2020 to both censor and turn sophisticated psychological operations and disinformation tactics developed abroad against the American people. Many insist that all that we identified in the Twitter files, the Facebook files, and the CTI files were legal activities by social media platforms to take down content that violated the terms of service. Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and other big tech companies are privately owned, people point out, and free to censor content. And government officials are free to point out wrong information, they argue. But the First Amendment prohibits the government from abridging freedom of speech. The Supreme Court has ruled that the government may not induce, encourage, or promote private persons to accomplish what is constitutionally forbidden to accomplish. And there's now a large body of evidence proving that the government did precisely that. What's more, the whistleblower who delivered the CTIL files to us says that its leader, a quote-unquote former British intelligence analyst, was quote-unquote in the room at the Obama White House in 2017 when she received the instructions to create a counter-disinformation project to, quote, stop a repeat of 2016.
Whoa!
The U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Information Security Agency, CISA, has been the center of gravity for much of the censorship, with the National Science Foundation financing the development of censorship and disinformation tools, and other federal government agencies playing a supportive role. Emails from CISA's NGO and social media partners show that CISA created the Election Integrity Partnership, EIP, in 2020, which involved the Stanford Internet Observatory and other U.S. government contractors. EIP and its successor, the Virality Project, urged Twitter, Facebook, and other platforms to censor social media posts by ordinary citizens and elected officials alike. EIP reported that they had a 75% response rate from the platforms and that 35% of the URLs that they reported were either removed, labeled, or throttled or soft blocked. In 2020, the Department of Homeland Security, CISA, violated the First Amendment and interfered in the election, while in 2021, CISA and the White House violated the First Amendment and undermined America's response to the COVID pandemic by demanding that Facebook and Twitter censor content that Facebook itself said was, quote unquote, often true, including about vaccine side effects. All of this is profoundly un-American. One's commitment to free speech means nothing if it does not extend to your political enemies. In his essential new book, Liar in a Crowded Theater, Jeff Kosef, a law professor at the United States Naval Academy, shows that the widespread view that the government can censor false speech and or speech that, quote unquote, causes harm is mostly wrong. The Supreme Court has allowed very few constraints on speech. For example, the test of incitement to violence remains its immediacy. I encourage Congress to defund and dismantle the government organizations involved in censorship. That includes phasing out all funding for the National Science Foundation's Track F, Trust and Authenticity in Communication Systems, and its Secure and Trustworthy Cyberspace track. I would also encourage Congress to abolish CISA in DHS. Short of taking those steps, I would encourage significant guardrails and oversight to prevent such censorship from happening again. In particular, it's very easy to see the line in CISA. They say they're covering physical security, cybersecurity, but they added a third one, cognitive security, which is basically attempting to control the information environment and how people think about the world, including the stories that they tell.
Control us.
Finally, I would encourage Congress to consider making Section 230 liability protections contingent upon social media platforms known in the law as interactive computer services to allow adult users to moderate our own legal content through filters that we choose and whose algorithms are transparent to all of us. I would encourage Congress to prohibit government officials from asking the platforms to remove content which the Supreme Court may or may not rule unconstitutional next year when it decides on the Missouri v. Biden case. Should the court somehow decide that the government requests for censorship are constitutional, then I would urge Congress to require such requests to be reported publicly, instantaneously, so that such censorship demands occur in plain sight. Thank you very much for hearing my testimony.
All right, very shocking and scary revelations there. We are up against some very powerful actors, global efforts with millions, if not billions of dollars and decades of infrastructure behind them so that 2016 doesn't happen again. And we all felt it, by the way. I remember what 2016 felt like on the internet. I remember what 2020 felt like on the internet, and they were censoring and suppressing us hard. in 2020 and in the year before that. So it was a night and day operation. I mean, the thing worked. I mean, it worked, right? They suppressed a bunch of people. And so the amount of energy that we're going to have to bring this next election, the amount of enthusiasm, we're going to have to drag 5 people to the polls with us. Wake up! We're going voting today. We have to become stronger to buttress this effort. So let's take a look at the actual files that he's talking about, because it is pretty disgusting. This is the report from Michael Shellenberger. Highly recommended follow at Shellenberger on the X platform. And he tells us, now, many people insist that the government isn't involved in censorship, but they are. And now a whistleblower has come forward. Here's the post. CTIL, files version 1, tells us, the US and the UK military contractors created a sweeping plan for global censorship in 2018. A whistleblower made this known. It says a whistleblower has come forward with an explosive new trove of documents, rivaling or exceeding the Twitter files, the Facebook files, the cyber threat intelligence leak. Not a Marvel film, but certainly filled with evil actors, says that officially began as the volunteer project of data scientists. Just scientists, the worst, and defense and intelligence veterans, but whose tactics over time appear to have been absorbed into multiple official projects, including Homeland Security. Now, the CTI leaked documents offer the missing link, answers to the key questions that were not addressed in the Twitter files and the Facebook files. Combined, they offer a comprehensive picture of the birth of the anti-disinformation sector and the censorship apparatus. Now, the whistleblower's documents describe everything from the genesis of the digital censorship programs to how they partnered with sock puppet accounts to offer offensive techniques. So they were silencing people and creating fake sock puppet accounts. One document says, quote, lock your stuff down. Explains one document about creating your spy disguise, lock your stuff down. Another document says that while such activities overseas are, quote, typically done by the CIA and the NSA and the DOD, censorship efforts, quote, against Americans have to be done using private partners because the government doesn't have legal authority. See how that works? CIA can go do it on their own. The government can just do it overseas, but they got to use a third-party provider to do it. So the whistleblower says that the leader of the CTI League, a former, quote, British intelligence analyst, was, quote, in the room when Obama was there to stop a repeat of 2016. So over the last year, congressional investigators and others, they have uncovered a network of over 100 government agencies and non-governmental organizations who work together to do this. DHS, CISA, all created an organization in 2020. They called it the Election Integrity Partnership, which involved Stanford Internet Observatory and U.S. government contractors. The Virality Project and others, they urged Twitter and Facebook and others to censor social media posts. Now, despite overwhelming evidence of government-sponsored censorship, it had yet to be determined where the idea for this mass censorship regime came from. But now we know. In 2018, an SIO official and former CIA fellow called Rene de Resista generated national headlines before and after testifying to the U.S. Senate about government interference in 2016. But what happened between 2018 and spring 2020? Well, the year 2019 has been a black hole in the research of the censorship industrial complex. When one of us, Michael, testified to the U.S. House of Representatives about the censorship industrial complex of March of this year, the entire year was missing from his timeline. But now a large trove of documents, including strategy documents, training videos, presentations, and internal messages reveal that in 2019, U.S. and UK military and intelligence contractors, led by a former UK defense researcher called Sarah Jane S.J. Terp, developed a sweeping censorship framework, and these contractors co-led CTIL, which partnered with CISA in the spring of 2020. Now, in truth, they say, the building of the censorship industrial complex began even earlier in 2018. Internal Slack messages show that woman Terp and her colleagues and officials from DHS and Facebook all work closely together in the process. The CTIL framework and the public-private model are the seeds of what both the US and the UK would put into place back in 2020 and 2021. They would mask their censorship, and their cybersecurity institutions and their counterinformation agendas, with a heavy focus on stopping disfavored narratives, not just wrong facts, and pressuring social media platforms to take down information or take other actions to prevent content from going viral. Now, in the spring of 2020, CTIL began tracking and reporting disfavored content on social media, such as anti-lockdown narratives, quote, like all jobs are essential, which this show was birthed in the spring of 2020. And that's why we started it, because they were wrecking the country. We couldn't stand for it. All jobs are essential. We won't stay home. Open America now. CTIL created a law enforcement channel for reporting content as part of these efforts. The organization also did research on individuals posting anti-lockdown hashtags like FreeCA, FreeAZ, and kept a spreadsheet with details from their Twitter bios, like little whiny censors. The group also discussed requesting takedowns and reporting website domains to registrars. CTIL's approach to disinfo went far beyond censorship. They engaged in offensive operations to influence public opinion. They discussed ways to promote counter-messaging, on how to co-opt hashtags, on how to dilute disfavored messaging, create sock puppet accounts, and infiltrate private-only individual groups. In one suggested list of survey questions, CTIL proposed asking members and potential members, have you worked with influence operations before? Have you done active measures? Have you done PSYOPs before? Now, the documents came from a highly credible whistleblower, but we were able to independently verify their legitimacy through extensive cross-checking of information to publicly available sources. The whistleblower said that they were recruited to participate in CTIL through the monthly cybersecurity meetings hosted by DHS. Now, the FBI declined to comment, obviously. CISA did not respond to our request for comment, and TERP and other key CTIL leaders also did not respond to comment. But one person involved, this person called Bonnie Smalley, replied over LinkedIn saying, all I can comment on is that I joined the CTI League, which is unaffiliated with any government organizations, because I wanted to combat the inject bleach nonsense, which was a fake hoax during COVID. I can assure you that we had nothing to do with the government, though. Yeah, right. Now, yet the document suggests that the government employees were engaged members of CTIL. Government employees were engaged members of CTIL. Now, it wasn't officially a government organization, but of course we know that they were involved. Now, one individual who worked for DHS, Justin Frappier, was extremely active in CTIL, participating in regular meetings and leading trainings. You see this email here, or this is from the Slack channel, COVID-19 CTI League. They're like Avengers. They're like disinformation Avengers. We're a league. Yeah. Here, they said here, they shared this one, disinformation triage. Oh my gosh, these people are just something else. So disinformation triage. SJ Terp says here, reading group and just over a big book says that we're on books Thomas read active measures chapters. Oh, that's good. They're reading active measures chapters, I guess, or she's sharing a post. I told my doctor, so much work to do. I know a lot of medical field people. Was added, this person, Justin Frappier, disinformation team, incident management team. He's added to the group. Justin Frappier drops this message. He says, LOL, hello from the other side. He's a government official. Sounds like. Yeah, there he is. There he is, government official. He works for DHS, who worked for them, was very active there. Now, their ultimate goal, said the whistleblower, was, quote, to become a part of the federal government. In our weekly meetings, they made it clear that they were building these organizations within the federal government, and if you build the first iteration, we could secure a job for you. Now, TERP's plan, which she shared in presentations to information security and cybersecurity groups in 2019, was to create misinfosec communities. That would include the government. Now, both public records and whistleblower documents suggest that she achieved this. In April 2020, Chris Krebs, then director of CISA, announced on Twitter that CISA was partnering with CTIL. It's really an information exchange. No, you're outsourcing your censorship. Now, the documents also show that TERP and her colleagues, through a group of misinfosec working group, which included the RESTA, created a censorship, influence, and anti-disinformation strategy called Adversarial Misinformation and Influence Tactics and Techniques, AMIT. They wrote AMIT by adapting a cybersecurity framework developed by Mitra a major defense and intelligence contractor that has an annual budget of $1 to $2 billion. TERP then used the military framework to develop the disarm framework, which the WHO then employed in countering anti-jab info across Europe. Now, a key component of her work through CTIL, MISINFOSEC, AMIT was to insert the concept of cognitive security into the fields of cybersecurity and information security. In sum, they tell us that the total of these documents is a clear picture of a highly coordinated and sophisticated effort by the US and the UK governments to build a domestic censorship effort and to influence operations similar to the ones that they have used in foreign countries. At one point, TERP openly referenced, quote, her work in the background on social media issues related to the Arab Spring. Another time, the whistleblower said that she expressed her own apparent surprise that she would ever use such tactics against American citizens. I can't believe we're doing this. But Trump, according to the whistleblower, roughly 12 to 20 active people involved in CTIL worked at the FBI or CISA. For a while, they had their agency seals next to your name, okay? FBI, CISA, whatever. They just put the info, the name, seal next to your name. TERP had a CISA badge that went away at some point. They took those off, like, oops, maybe we shouldn't do that. Now, the ambitions of the 2020 pioneers went far beyond simply urging Twitter to warn stuff. The framework calls for the discrediting of individuals, necessary prerequisite for demanding censorship against them. You don't just ban their posts. You have to wreck them. It calls for training influencers to spread messages. It calls for trying to get banks to cut off financial services to individuals who organize rallies and events. The timeline of CISA's work with CTIL, leading up to its work with the EIP and the VP, strongly suggests that the model for public-private censorship may have originated with a framework originally created for military contractors coming out against us. Now, what's more, the techniques and the materials outlined by CTIL closely resemble materials later created by CISA's Countering Foreign Intelligence Task Force and the Mis, Dis, and Malinformation Team. Now, over the next several days and weeks, they say, we intend to present these documents to Congress. We're going to make them all publicly available and show you what's happening. But for now, we need to take a closer look at what happened in 2018, 2019, and beyond. Here are some of the forms that they were able to gather up. So here's the information environment. You have the physical dimension, right? This is anti-misinformation, military type frameworks that they are deploying to censor us on a grand scale across the whole country. The information environment. Well, we've got the physical dimension, obviously, where the information environment overlaps with the physical world. We talk about this often on our member streams, the world of atoms versus the world of bits. A Peter Thiel concept. Information systems and networks. Key characteristics, we've got computers, communication systems, supporting infrastructure, and so on. Then we've got the information dimension. So we've got the physical apparatus and the information layer. Information is collected, disseminated. It's got dual nature. Information is itself and it's the medium. Information content and the flow where automated decision-making takes place. And then the most nefarious, the cognitive dimension that needs to be secured, where human decision-making takes place in your brain. Dimensions of the intangibles. What do they need to impact? Morale, unit cohesion, public opinion, situational awareness. Key characteristics, perceptions, emotions, awareness, and understanding. They need to get involved in that. So they published all sorts of stories saying that they were just volunteer cybersecurity experts and former Israeli intelligence and Microsoft security manager. Now, these articles claim that these highly skilled professionals just decided to help billion-dollar hospitals all on their own time. But apparently, they'd grown to 1,400 members in 76 countries. They helped to lawfully take down 2,800, quote, cyber criminal assets. At every opportunity, they were removing stories. Now, Terp and Pablo, other leaders, they had backgrounds as former military contractors. And according to her bio, she also designed machine learning algorithms on aerial systems for the UK Ministry of Defense. So these people are smart people. Brewer is a former US Navy commander. According to his bio, he also was a senior military advisor, innovation officer at SoftWorks, Naval Central Command. He's got the creation of CTIL on his LinkedIn page. In 2018, Terp attended a 10-day military exercise organized by U.S. Special Operations Command, where she first met Brewer and others. Now, they admitted on a podcast that her aim was to bring military tactics to use on social media platforms. Brewer said, "I wear two hats, the military director of the Donovan Group and SoftWorks, which is completely unclassified nonprofit." Here's the countermeasures framework, which is just incredible. Okay, so this is what they do every time there's misinformation. Planning. Have a disinformation response plan. Improve stakeholder communication. Make civil society more vibrant. Red team disinformation. Design mitigations as soon as something hits. Platform regulation, etc. At the bottom on all of these columns. Objective planning. Tabletop simulations. Media literacy through games. Educate influencers. Legal action against for-profit engagement farms, right? Take them out. These are what these people are planning to silence your participation in the next election. How dare your cognitive framework deviate from their defined narrative? Here's how they're going to prepare. They're going to find and train influencers. What? They're going to remove old and unused accounts. They're going to fill information voids, stem the flow of advertising money. We got demonetized for 9 months after January 6th. 9 months. They just demonetized the whole channel. Sorry, you're done. Yeah. And that can take out a whole, that can take out somebody, man. It was a big hit. It was a big hit. Fortunately, I had a law firm at the time. So stem flow of advertising money, right? It's critical. They're doing it again. You're seeing them demonetize people and nuke people. Honeypot social community. Oh gosh. So that they can just catalog everybody. Here, rate limit engagement. Redirect searches away from disinfo so they can just take your search away. Honeypot, a fake engagement system. Okay, so like be cognizant out there. Like when you're traveling around talking to people, bots to engage and distract the trolls. Like this is military grade tactics. Probably with AI, ChatGPT, LLMs all over the place. Strengthen verification methods, verified IDs, prohibit images in political channels, add metadata, add warning labels, infiltrate disinformation platforms, social media source removals, infiltrate in groups. Infiltrate. Are you guys watching here? You CTIL punks? I hope you're learning something. Hope you're taking notes out there. Name and shame disinformation influencers. Maybe charge them with crimes. Maybe arrest them. Ensure platforms are taking down accounts. Marginalize and discredit extremist groups. Ban incident actors from funding sites. Countering social engineering training. Wild. Okay, so this is what our military is doing. And then also in the execution, let's see what else. Pump priming, they say. Micro-target. Likely targets with counter messages, train journalists, I'm sure they've got a bunch of them, train journalists to counter influence moves, tool transparency, ask the media not to report the false info, which they'll oblige, repurpose images with counter messages, so steal your content and then reuse it, engage in payloads, don't engage in payloads, hashtag jacking, social media amber alerts, remove and rate limit bots, cut off banking access. These people cut off your banking access so that you can't access your money. Wild. Influencer disavows misinfo, expire likes and retweets, mark content with ridicule and decelerates. Ridicule the other side. Humorous counter narratives. Okay, this is stuff that we do here. You know, we lampoon the other side. It's very effective. And they make it easy, which is why they have to silence us. Like these are some of the things that we do to mock and hammer them. And so they need military operations to counter this, right? Satire, ridicule, lampooning. These are the tools that are thousands of years old, right? We've been doing this since the dawn of time, ridiculing and lampooning the people in charge. But they want to use those same tactics because they want to silence you. Now, we're just, a live stream, okay? This is the military, right? They've got go physical. Don't even know what that means. They don't have anything under there. They probably left that one off the chart for a reason. Go physical. Don't know what that means. And persistence. DMCA takedown requests. Spam domestic actors with lawsuits. Look at that, man. Spam domestic actors with lawsuits. It's an official tactic. Scary stuff. And seize and analyze botnet servers, right? And this is happening to certain people. Like, for example, you can say, hey, this is like a weaponized tactic. Like they're going after, like Hunter's using some of these tactics, right? Going after Garrett Ziegler and those guys at Marco Polo USA. Here, evaluation. They also want to poison monitoring and evaluation data, whatever that means. Poison the monitoring and evaluation data. And they want to bomb link shorteners with calls. Add random links to network graphs. These are people just wrecking the internet for their own purpose, wrecking free speech. And it is a government-private partnership, all in the interest of securing their narratives. Yeah, it's really, really disgusting. So as we carry on, this is what else they've got for us. Here they have attackers and defenders. We've got some tools here: artifacts, narratives, incidents, and campaigns. And I actually don't like this color coordination. I don't think it's a bad slide. But here, all of this, Brewer went on to describe how they got around the First Amendment. He says he worked with TERP. He explained this was a way to get non-traditional media partners into one room. They reported sweeping government censorship during the first 6 months of 2019. They analyzed incidents, numerous reporting systems. In every incident mentioned, the victims of misinformation were on the political left. Wow. Included Obama, Podesta, Hillary, and Macron. The report was open about the fact, wait a minute. The report was open about the fact that its motivation for counter-information were the twin political earthquakes of 2016. Brexit and the election of Trump. They said the victims of misinformation were on the left, right? So we have to stop the misinformation to protect Obama, Podesta, Hillary, and Macron. Now, a study of the antecedents said that we have to stop the usual useful idiots. Now it's our brains that are being hacked. And we have to focus on information that, quote, changes beliefs and changes narratives. Now, the report laments that the government and corporate media, they no longer have full control of information. Here's what the report says. For a long time, the ability to reach mass audiences belonged to the nation state. In the USA, we had broadcast licensing. Through ABC, CBS, and NBC, the government controlled the message. Now, however, control of information and informational instruments has been allowed to devolve to large technology companies, and they've been blissfully complacent in facilitating access to public information by other means. Yeah, we have shows like this. The authors advocated for police, military, and intelligence involvement, including the Five Eyes nations and Interpol, to suggest that we need a new framework to stop this. We also need pre-bunking to preemptively inoculate a vulnerable population to the messaging. Now, the view of disinformation was overtly political. They said most misinformation is actually true, says TERP, but it's set in the wrong context. Now, she's an eloquent explainer of the strategy of using anti-disinformation. Says you're not trying to get people to believe lies most of the time. You're just trying to make them change their belief sets. And so the in-group now, he says, no, this is somebody else says this is a violation of our First Amendment. And this is, the report goes on, and you can see here, they were flagging these, right? No more lockdowns. You got flagged for misinformation. You have an alerting, you have an organization process, you have a collection process, and you have an action process, all working to silence all of us. Here's the timeline. They created and established the mission statement. They worked their papers. They created a techniques list. They refined the protocols. They had a black hat presentation. They had different population counters lists, blue team workshops, and so on. An entire censorship industrial complex focused on us, focused on our participation. Sick things that are happening. So that is the CTIL files version 1. We heard from Michael Shellenberger. Matt Taibbi gives us his opening statement. He's also been participating in this inquiry. Here's what he sounds like.
Thank you, Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Plaskett, and members of the committee for giving us the opportunity to speak today. Exactly 1 year ago today, I had my first look at the documents that came to be known as the Twitter files. We've learned a lot since then. When Michael and I testified before the good people of this committee in March, we both talked about how this isn't a partisan issue at all, despite the fact that it's been repeatedly described as a right-wing conspiracy theory or a right-wing fantasy. We found evidence of suppression of movements on both sides, including leftist movements like the Yellow Vests, parties like the Green Party, organizations like Censorship magazine. Just this week, Michael and I reported on the group that he talked about, the CTIL League, and in those documents we found evidence of monitoring groups like the Democratic Socialists of America, hashtags like Healthcare for All. The nature of censorship programs is that they tend to expand in all directions, and these programs already have. As someone who voted for Democrats his whole life and who got his ideas about speech issues from people like Senator Frank Church, Paul Wellstone, Dennis Kucinich.
Kucinich used to be a free speech hero for the left. He was ranting about government censorship.
I believe also that there's a less obvious but more important reason that people across the spectrum should care about this issue. And the former executive director of the ACLU, Ira Glasser, once explained to a group of students why he didn't support hate speech codes on campuses. The problem, he said, wasn't the speech. The problem was, quote, who gets to decide what's hateful? Who gets to decide what to ban? Because, quote, most of the time, it ain't you. The story that came out in the Twitter files, and for which more evidence surfaced in both the Missouri v. Biden lawsuit and this committee's Facebook files releases and the CTIL League documents, they all speak directly to Ira Glasser's concerns. There's been a dramatic shift in attitudes about speech in this country, and many politicians now clearly believe the bulk of Americans can't be trusted to digest information on their own. This mindset imagines that if we see one clip from RT, we'll stop being patriots, that once exposed to hate speech, we'll become bigots ourselves automatically.
Right, we're too dumb.
That if we read even one Donald Trump tweet, we'll become insurrectionists.
America.
Having come to this conclusion, the government agencies like the DHS and the FBI and the quasi-private agencies who do anti-disinformation work have taken upon themselves the paternalistic responsibility to sort out for us what is and is not safe. While they see great danger in allowing others to read controversial material, it's taken for granted that they themselves will be immune to the dangers of speech. This leads to the one inescapable question about these new anti-disinformation programs that is never discussed but needs to be. Who does this work? Stanford's Election Integrity Project helpfully made a graphic showing the quote-unquote external stakeholders involved in their content review operation. It showed 4 columns: government, civil society, platforms, and media. There's one group that's conspicuously absent from that list: people, ordinary people. Whether America continues the informal sub-rosa censorship system we've seen in the Twitter files or the Facebook files, or whether it formally adopts something like Europe's draconian New Digital Services Act, it's already abundantly clear who won't be involved in this kind of work. There'll be no dock workers doing content flagging, no poor people from inner city neighborhoods, no single moms pulling multiple waitressing jobs, no immigrant store owners or Uber drivers. These programs will always feature a tiny, rarefied sliver of affluent professional class Americans censoring a huge and ever-expanding pool of everyone else. Take away the highfalutin talk about countering hate and reducing harm, and anti-disinformation is just a bluntly elitist gatekeeping exercise. If you prefer to think in progressive terms, it's class war. If one small demographic over here has broad control over the whole, speech landscape, and a great big one over there has no control whatsoever, it follows that one of those groups will end up with more political power than the other.
That's the point.
Which one is the winner? To paraphrase our Glasser, it probably ain't yours. It isn't just one side or the other that will lose if these programs are allowed to continue. It's pretty much everyone, which is why these programs must be defunded before it's too late. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I agree, man. And this is for everybody. Like, free speech is a natural, God-given humanitarian right. It's how we become and embrace our humanity. Our ability to think and reason, our consciousness is communicated through our speech. And they want to censor that. It's anti-human. It's not good for the left, even if they think it's good for them. You know, it's like a kid. It's like you can't eat all the ice cream. Okay, you can't censor everybody. It's not good for you. You're going to wreck the whole planet, idiots. So here's Dan Goldman, one of them, who can't figure this out, who just turns around and turns this into a Hunter Biden conspiracy theory conversation. We're talking about government military grade censorship, and this whack job is talking about Hunter Biden. And he's a conspiracy theorist now with the rest of us.
You've talked about the Hunter Biden laptop and how the FBI knew it existed.
And suppressed it.
You are aware, of course, that the laptop, so to speak, that was published in the New York Post was actually a hard drive that the New York Post admitted here was not authenticated as real. It was not the laptop the FBI had. You're aware of that, right?
It was the same contents.
How do you know?
Because it's the same. I mean,
you would have to authenticate it to know it was the same contents. You have no idea. You know hard drives can be manipulated.
Are you suggesting the New York Post could participate in a conspiracy to construct the contents of the Hunter Biden laptop?
No, sir. The problem is that hard drives can be manipulated by Rudy Giuliani or Russia.
What's the evidence that happened?
Well, there is actual evidence of it, but the point is it's not the same thing.
There's no evidence for it, so you're engaging in a conspiracy.
I'm glad you agree with me, Mr. Shellenberger, that transparency is the most important thing. And my last question for you is, do you think it would be transparent if Hunter Biden came to this Congress and testified in a public hearing, and more transparent than if he testified privately?
Literally, I've never thought about that. I have no idea.
I'm not here for this.
You don't know?
Literally never thought about that.
Public testimony more transparent than private testimony?
Are you familiar with the First
Mr.
Amendment?
Chairman, I yield back.
Congress shall take no action to abridge freedom of speech.
Yeah,
and that's what you just described.
Mr. Shell.
There you go. I mean, Dan, I don't know what he's talking about. He's like, what the heck are we? Where are we, man? Why are you talking about Hunter, you weird freak? All right, this is Jim Jordan now, who's going to close it out. And they're all trying to justify censorship. Like, I don't know why censorship is not a universal thing. Actually, I do know why. It's because they use it to win, because they can't compete in the regular arena of ideas. They have to censor their opponents because they're bullies, cheaters, and liars. And so this is what Shellenberger says when Jim Jordan is asking about this, because the response from the left was, well, they didn't censor everything. Like, there was only like a certain percentage, and like 13% censorship is not that bad.
Mr. Shellenberger, is 13% censorship still censorship?
Absolutely.
And the other 87% is what we call the chilling effect that the courts have long recognized that they engaged in. That is the problem.
There's a broad, by the way, part of the operation, Congressman Goldman, part of the operation was to change the terms of service. So you see them constantly trying to change the terms of service. You see them, it was 35% of the URLs that were according to EIP were labeled removed or soft blocked. That's all forms of censorship. That censorship is not just removal.
But 65% were not. So how can the government be so coercive?
Does the First Amendment say
that's
that the
about par
government
for the
can
course
only-
on government
Does the
efficiency?
First Amendment say the government can censor?
Time of the gentleman has
They're not
expired.
censoring. They're flagging in the social media companies.
Under coercion.
35% of the First Amendment? Or?
It's not the First Amendment. It's the terms of service, as you said, and they are flagging it for the social media companies to make their own decisions. That is not the First Amendment. That is the terms of service.
We've just seen them.
Congressman, you're an attorney. You know that the 4 federal judges have already ruled that.
And I know that it's on appeal in front of the Supreme Court right now.
That debate was very constructive.
that was
I
fun.
think that got to the heart of the
It
issue.
was constructive. I tell you, man, it makes me want to go testify in front of the House of Representatives. It sounds fun. What, Dan? You little punk? How about this, right? You have whatever he questions you about, whatever, just be prepared. Just, just to go after the Democrats, essentially. So shout out to Shellenberger. Shout out to Taibbi for holding their grounds in there, for bringing us this incredible news. I mean, these guys are doing some really, really important reporting, some very heavy lifting. This stuff is nefarious, man. It is the mind control that we're all talking about, right? We all wake up. Where do these weird narratives start? Like, why are we all listening to like underwater submarines blowing up or stuff? Like, where do these narratives come that just capture everybody's attention and just deviate us down different paths? It's right here. Yeah, they just exposed it all. And it's still in operation. I'm sure of it. And they're gearing up, man. And so we've got to overcome that organically. All of this digital suppression, debanking, the whole, Jeopardy board of spreadsheet problems that they had up there for us to see, different attack vectors and so on. We got to overcome that in massive, massive numbers, and we will. And so we'll be here continuing to cover this, my friends. Thank you for joining us as we do. Thank you for hitting that subscribe button wherever it is you're watching it. Thanks for inviting a friend or family member to come over and join us. We go live 5 p.m. Eastern time, and we'd love to see you here with them. We'll look forward to seeing everybody here on the next one. All right, my friends. And so we covered some good ground today. We got updates on the military-grade censorship industrial complex, updates on discovery battles over in the Jack Smith case. We know Trump is slamming Judge Engoron's wife, whether that is her post or not. And so now, my friends, it is time to hear from you and to see what you have to say about this over from our friends on the YouTubes, on the Rumbles. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. And a reminder that tomorrow we will not be here live. I will be out of pocket at an event Friday, Saturday, and Sunday all day. It's going to be a great event, but we'll not be here streaming. So I will be missing you dearly. I do actually really not like to miss the show, but this is the big annual event. And so I want to be present. I want to be focused, and that's where I will be. For members, I fully intend to post some updates and kind of share some stuff that's going on there. We should have some political speakers there. And there's a lot of great mindset and personal development stuff that's happening. So we'll be doing some shares on that. But that will be it for us on the week. Now, of course, I want to say thank you to our friends in the house who are supporting us. And this one came in from Vientikis. From Dolphin Fan is the man in the house, bringing in 5 new membos, and we love Dolphin Fan. And I always say Dolphin Fan is the man. Vientikis added, Dolphin Fan is the man on porpoise. Well done, V. Well done. Heyo. Dolphin Fan bringing in Donna F, James C, Reapers here, PK from AK's here. We also got Ducky Bestis in the house, courtesy of Dolphin Fan is the man and the porpoise. We got Quarter Native says, do we the people have grounds to go after the government or the judiciary for being included in the Trump warrant? I'll happily take up that torch if a lawyer wants to pick it up. It's an interesting case, actually. I think if you could allege some harm, there might actually be a case there. And I'm not a civil lawyer, but yeah, maybe if you actually had some harm and there's a bunch of them, I still think you're going to have a standing problem. They're going to say, well, you don't have any standing. It's a private company that did it, right? You were censored. I think that's going to be the problem. It's going to be a standing problem. They're going to say, but here's the other thing. It's like, what if you went after the people who did the things? Like the people who put you on the list? What if you went after the CTIL people? Could they have, still qualified immunity there? Like, we're getting outside the point now. Normally, my answer to these questions, the generic answer is no, okay? It's a government policy. It's a government situation. You can't sue the government. Like, you can't go after the government or the judiciary because they're the government or the judiciary. It becomes a standing problem. They just say, just vote for them, like vote for different people. If you could sue the government for every policy position you were unhappy with, then everybody would be suing the government all the time. So we don't allow that. We call it a political question and we kick it out of the courts. Go vote. Go run for office if you don't like it. But when they are censoring you specifically and you show up on a list somewhere and maybe your posts were hit or you were demonetized because some government bureaucrat somewhere exceeded the scope of what they're allowed to do, maybe they're personally liable, maybe qualified, their immunity doesn't attach anymore. Maybe there is an avenue that way, but probably a long shot. But it's a good question, Quarter Native. We'll see. We got Patrick Parker. Hey, 14 months, man. Patrick P. 14 months. Man, that's a long time, man. Thanks for being here. A year and then some. Happy anniversary, and thanks for being here with us. Robert for AG. Well, man, if Trump wins and duty calls, I'll be there. We've got this one from Patrick. Thank you. We got, his name is Robert Paulson, a membo for 3 months. That's 1/3 of the way to a baby. And love that. We got this one. Chris is here. Thank you, Chris, for the nice dono. A membo and a dono from our friend Chris. And Donna Newland. Oh my goodness. We are 1 month away. We're about to pop, Donna. And Donna's already got a baby in that photo. Donna's already got a baby. And another one's on the way. Says, when do you expect the order from Chutkan on Trump's dismissal motions? Would they combine the 3 motions to send to the Supreme Court? So I think they're probably going to be staggered. I think that the deadlines were staggered, actually. So I think they're staggered. And I think we had I think there was a batch of 3. Let me think about it. I think there was a batch of 3 for inflammatory language. So inflammatory language was already denied. Like, that one's done. The inflammatory language and the injunction and the indictment gone. Statutory and constitutional objections, I think, are still in queue. She also just ruled on the subpoenas, no. And I think we're still waiting on the statutory and the constitutional for sure. And then there was a new one to define the scope of the prosecution. So I don't know that they'll batch them all up. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe they will. File a big monster petition with all of the issues. Like, I don't know. How many issues are there going to be? There's going to be like 10 of them. So I don't know when. I think that's going to be scattered. So I don't think there'll be one final date. Like, they've already ruled. I think the next one we'll see are statutory and constitutional objections, and then we'll see the scope of Jack Smith's prosecution. That one is still outstanding as well. So I don't have a hard date on it, but probably over the next week, couple weeks. Like, trial, we start jury selection in February. It's gonna be here soon. So good to see you, Donna, and thanks for being here. We got Christian Fellowship Rob over on the Rumbles. Says, tell the feds and the influencers here to become whistleblowers. That's a good point. Yeah, hey, CTIL people, FBI, disgruntled FBI people who aren't, like the rest of them. Send us an email. Tell us what's going on. And same to you influencers out there. The heck? They're going after influencers? What does that even mean? I think I know what that means. Yeah. Probably the people who are apolitical. Like, I have a hard time believing that they're going to go to a political influencer and then convert them. But probably like for the jab stuff, right? All of that. Like, you go after the neutral people and you just bring them on your side. Hey, just a reminder, you're going to save lives if you do this. Just a reminder, Trump is this, whatever. Insurrection is this, right? Yeah, I get it. But don't fall for it, guys. Veronica, what's up, Veronica B? Veronica B in the house. First super chat, Veronica. Thanks for sending that one in. It is a very nice and appreciated one. Grateful that you're here. Hey, this one from Knox Bierman says, happy Thursday, all. Does wearing 2 hats make for an A hat? Does wearing 2 hats make for an A hat? I don't know what that means. 2 hats, like, well, it makes that guy a censor is definitely what it means. I have not heard that phrase before. I hear like 2 hats, like, like you wear like dad duties and then like, job duties, or like coach duties and then dad duties or whatever. Something like that from Knox. Good to see you, Knox. Debbie Marie is here, says, great info tonight. I repeat, you are unique in this realm. Thanks so much. Well, thank you, Debbie. Man, I'm just your humble document reader. We're just here going through the documents. We're just making sense of it. So thanks, Debbie. Very much appreciated. Thanks for being here on the locals. Good to see you. We've got, in my view, says, who left the bag of useful idiots open? There's a lot of them. Yeah, I think the federal government is leaving them open all over the place. I see a lot of them. We got Curtis Bartle, 17 months, man. Curtis, man, you're the man. Thank you for that. 17 months. That's 2 babies. Right? No, not yet. We got one more, almost 2 babies. Gosh, I had to do the math on that. So that is very, very close, Curtis Bartle. Looking forward to seeing you when it's here. So we got that one. We got Hell, this old guy says, hey, enjoy Genius tomorrow. I'm buying your coffee. 2 preemies. We could get 2 preemies. There you go. Hey, okay, so enjoy Genius tomorrow. Thank you, this old guy. I am going to enjoy it. I'm really going to try to be ultra present there and enjoy it. So thank you for the coffee. I'll definitely indulge. Hey, K Bean is here. And Hell Pike is here. What's up, Hell? Says best political show in America. Thank you for bringing it to us, Rob. Hey, thank you, Hell Pike. I appreciate that, man. That's a nice compliment. There's a lot of very good shows out there. A lot of very smart people out there. Much smarter than me. But we're doing our best, man. Thank you, Hell, for being here. And we'll be back. We got K Bean. 21 months, man. 21 months. K Bean modding down the fort for us, membering it up for us. Says cognitive security equals policing wrongthink, which is absolutely true. And K Bean, 21 months time, you've seen a lot of that here. We've seen a lot of policing wrongthink. But what's so bizarre is to see it on display, like to see their PowerPoint slides so that we can all just see it. Wild. Bob Schwartz, hey, a member for 4 months, almost halfway to a baby. Good to see you, Bob. Yeah, man, it's exciting times. You know, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it, and we're going to get there soon. Hey, Jay Water, Road Less Wolf, says, back to my question yesterday's. The sworn affidavits was the one referencing election day irregularities influencing election out. The sworn affidavits was the ones election day irregularities was referencing election out. So the affidavits, some of the affidavits that I'm thinking about were the affirmations from the gag order stuff, and then the J6 stuff and the check-in case. Sworn affidavits. Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to go back in the memory bank. I'm thinking maybe you're saying, what if you filed a bunch of sworn affidavits? Could that be useful in the cases? I mean, it might be useful if Trump knew about it, right? What they're trying to prove in the January 6th case is that Trump knew about the election was not rigged. And he could use evidence, I think, to support his current state of mind at the time to believe that the election was rigged. And so if something like sworn affidavits, if he knew that knowledge at the time when he was making his decisions or making his speeches, I think that stuff would be relevant. But other than that, it would not be relevant. So like a mass outpouring of affidavits from various, people throughout America would not be useful. Because the judge would keep it out. The judge would just say it's not, he didn't know it at the time. So we're going to preclude that. This one from K Bean. K Bean bringing in 5 new membos. K Bean, thank you for doing that. 5 membos coming in. John J, Jason F, RMK, Chris L, and Jesse C brought in courtesy of our friend K Bean, modding down the fort for us. And 21 months with K Bean. Thank you, K Bean. We got Spuds is here. Says it's a cornucopia of useful idiots out there. It's true. It's a cornucopia, and it's very holiday appropriate on the aftermath of the Thanksgiving. And so that, my friends, thank you for all those extremely generous donos. Very much appreciated. Let's see who is joining us over on the X platform before we wrap it up for our members only after party, and see who is joining us over there. On X at Rob Govea ESQ, we got 10 viewers. Woo, we're in double digits today. And Fred is here. We've got George is over there. We got Treason from George. Marco Polo. Hey. Wow. Okay, Marco Polo, they say confirmed that it was Engoron's wife's account. They used the old Twitter hack that revealed emails used to create accounts. That's interesting. So I have to say shout out to our friends at Marco Polo. George is over there. Says if Elon knows how many times you reload your feed, I'm sure he could tell us who the real account is. Come on, Elon. From George, knowing that I'm on X a lot, I'm on X a lot, taking a look. From George, we got V says, don't forget about when signature reduction got revealed a couple years ago. Yeah, like they would say that a signature had to match by like 80%, and then the signatures weren't matching, so they reduced it down to like, 60%, and then the machines still weren't working, so it's like 40%. Fred says, seeing and watching all this in real time is so disgusting. If it were a movie, it would be a bad movie. You're right about that. Yeah, it would be. It would true. It would true. Yeah, it would be bad. Hey, so everybody left as soon as we came over to Twitter. We were at 10. Over to X. Then everybody left. So we're out of here. Sorry, we're out. We're not watching anymore. Which kind of hurts my feelings, but what can you do about it? Okay, so my friends, that is it for us on the day and on the week. We are going to wrap it up right there and head on over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com to say what's up to our membos. Want to thank our mods and our meme smiths who mod down and memeify the place for us throughout the week. Our friend Vienticus Prime, of course, K-Bean, we got Just Cause, Playing Hooky, Ronnie Cole, our friend Zulu, Beyond Geo, Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek 909, Dog Digger, and Donut Mind Me, all modding down the fort for us. Our meme smiths, Sleepy Dog Lee, Geegum Geegum, and Nathan N810. And my friends, Vienticus dropped a link into his Barnes & Noble. Vienticus has a new book out. If you haven't seen that, be sure to grab that link in the chat and in the comments. And we had this one from Mama Pillow. We have a baby! Yay! Coming out here. Oh my gosh, so adorable. It's a baby, says Mama Pillow. Thanks, Rob, for your work. We got a new one in the house, a little watcher just screaming out there, screaming around. Welcome to the world. Newest baby, and Mama Pillow, thank you for being a member for 9 months. How amazing. Super fun. Thanks for sharing that with us. And another one, man. Another one is out here popping around. Going to be a soccer player, I think. Yeah. Yeah. And Jay says Mama Pillow's hot. Yeah. All right. So we got this one. All right. And another one. Okay. We got X over there. And another comment over on the house. So we are going to leave it there, my friends. We're going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. And of course, we are going to leave it there. Tomorrow's Friday, but we're not going to be here. We'll be back here on Monday. But we did have a busy week. We are going to have a beautiful weekend. I hope you're able to close out the week nice and beautifully, accomplishing everything you're setting your mind to, and then unplugging for the weekend so that you can restore, recharge your batteries, get outside, spend time with the family you love, the friends that you love, getting sunshine and vitamin D, and getting ready to come back here on Monday, ready to go, recharged and refreshed, because we're going to have some serious business to attend to, and we need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends, and a beautiful weekend. We'll see you right back here on Monday. Make it a great night. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.